Welcome to the Area Podcast from the Ames Regional Economic Alliance. I'm your host, Eric Smith. On today's episode, we're joined by Valerie Grubb, internationally recognized keynote speaker and author on leadership. She shares insights from her corporate career, the realities of leading across generations, and practical strategies leaders can use to strengthen culture, retain talent, and evaluate their teams. This episode is presented by Flynn Wright, Iowa's premier full-service advertising agency, serving clients from coast to coast for over 40 years. Experts in crafting stories that sell, Flynn Wright prides itself on helping brands drive performance and stay one step ahead. Valerie Grubb, thank you for being on this episode of the Area Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'll tell you what, you've had a busy day today here in Ames. So you flew in from New Orleans yesterday. You were the keynote speaker for not one, but two events already today. You have another event tonight.
I know, and I'm excited, and we're fitting this in the middle.
Yeah,
so
I love it.
We're gonna wring out all we can in my time in Ames.
I love it. Well, you already keynoted, but one of the things we're already hearing about this. You talk about leadership development, operations, culture, and then if anyone, and they should, a lot of people who attended our annual events, they had an opportunity to take your book with them, talking about the generational differences in the workplace. And I'll tell you what, after listening to you already today, there were so many takeaways that not only I got from that, but from within the book, like my gears are just turning already.
Good. And that's my definition of success as somebody who speaks, who's a speaker. Like, I want you to walk out of, people ask me if I'm a motivational speaker, and I say, not really. What I am, I'm a skills-based speaker. I want to help you elevate your skills. Now, I'm going to motivate you to elevate your skills because you're going to walk out with takeaways.
Yeah.
So that's how I define success for me as a professional speaker, that you have at least one. Now, my preference is you have a bunch, but at least one, something that you're going to do different tomorrow that's going to help you do your job.
Well, the thing that really resonated with our audience, we're a business and industry organization, and that's who was our audience today. And so, for those business leaders here in our region to be able to hear you talk about the differences between Gen X and Gen Z and millennials and just the things that are important to them, I think that understanding, again, it just gets the gears moving on because leadership is hard.
Oh, it is.
And then it gets really hard when, you start putting decades between people just because those life experiences are different.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and look, when I started, it was sort of a one-size-fits-all.
Yeah.
One-size-fits-all of leadership. It was everybody was sort of expected to adapt to the leader.
Yeah.
And it's a big, bold world out there. Leadership has changed. And as leaders, we have to adapt to that. And by the way, by doing it, the great thing is I feel like I'm continually upping my skills, which makes it fun for me to come in and figure out what employee A, what makes them tick versus employee B. And by the way, everybody works for me. So I'm the one who wins by me figuring out how best to motivate and engage them. So I win because of it, and I have fun trying to figure out the puzzle pieces and what makes them tick.
Well, before we unpack some of those tidbits that you talked about today, let's go through your journey here a little bit. One of the most interesting things that I heard you talk about is working for Oxygen, the Oprah Winfrey channel, and you helped launch that.
Yep.
What was it like working in media and TV and all of that?
It was fabulous. I'm not going to lie. It was difficult. I started out, my undergrad's in engineering, and born and raised in Indiana, and I went into engineering. My brother went in it. My dad was very technical. And I realized that that's not what I wanted to do for my, I loved what I did. I was there for 11 years. But what I really wanted to do was to work in film and television. And so I quit my job, knew no one, moved to California, and just started. I had enough money that I could go a year without making big money, and just I did film, and I did a behind the scenes. I was an assistant set director for a for a short film, and did that for 6 months. And I thought, God, man, this is nothing like I expected. Like, it was not sexy and fun. It was a job job and was dirty and nasty. And I thought, I think what I want to do, or maybe what I want to do next, is be in film and television, but be on the corporate side of things. And that I found my home. And so I did that for 12 years, starting 2 companies, founded IAC for Barry Diller, and then was recruited away to start Oxygen. And I guess I just believe that if you have a dream, you've got to figure out how to do it. And don't let, I'm smart about it. I didn't quit my job without like saving pennies. And by the way, that's exactly what I did when we sold Oxygen. I was going to go out on my own. Decided to go to NBC Universal for 6 months. They were the acquiring company.
Yeah.
Hated it, and hated my boss. And what's that saying? People join companies, but they leave bosses. And I had in my contract that I could leave up to 6 months and still get my severance. And I remember driving across the GW Bridge in New York and thinking, oh my God, if this car plunges off the GW Bridge, can I not go in the office today? Like, that's how much I hated working for this guy. And I just decided right then and there, I got to do something different. This is not how life is meant to be lived. And I took the next 5 months and got my business ready to go out on my own and launch. And so I'm obviously a big career changer. That's 17 years that I've been on my own. I've loved every job I've had, Eric. I love working for Oprah, loved working for Barry Diller. I loved working in engineering, and then I was done. Then I'm done, and it's ready for what's next. So I take what I learned and moved over to what's next. So every job I've had has been fabulous.
So what was it about like the Oxygen that you love? Because I heard you, here and then earlier today just talking about how in many ways from a media standpoint, it was a media startup in some ways. And so, the money isn't always there right away, but you're just going, and people are staying. And what I heard was you talking about culture in that situation.
Absolutely. And we really we really believed in the mission. And it was mission forward at all times, that it was about, there's not enough programming right now when we launched geared towards women. Lot for general, a lot for men, but just really not a lot for women. And so we saw that as an opportunity that for a hole that needed to be filled. And by God, we led with mission. And that really was what started it and really got people fired up. I talked about in the sessions today, our voluntary turnover was like less than 2%. It was staggering in entertainment, which is truly, truly unheard of. And it was because people believed in the mission. And so it affected the culture, everything we did. And so when you've got, I always kind of talk about, make sure people understand the work that your product is going after. Even if you make pencils, you're helping people write out their dreams. You're helping kids learn to write for the first time. Like, don't forget those stories that feed into the mission, because that helps to feed a positive culture, which makes people want to stay there.
Yeah. Well, and so now today, we have the book, and we're going to talk about some of the content within that. But your keynote speaking. But one of the things that you talk about is leadership. So why that topic?
I remember when I was in engineering, when I started, I had my first opportunity. There was an open position, and I asked my boss. I'll call him Bob. I almost said his name, but I'm going to call him Bob. That wasn't his name. But I reached out to Bob and I said, hey, Bob, I see this position's open. It's supervising this this maintenance crew. I really, really want, I want to put my name in the hat. Do you think that I'm ready? And his comment to me was, nope, you're not quite ready. And I said, all right, got it. Tell me what I need to do so that the next time this position opens up, I'm ready. And his response to me, which I still can quote to this day, was, well, I can't really name it, but I'll know it when I see it. And at that point, I knew that he had no idea what skills that I needed to develop to go be into my first leadership position. And first off, I moved out from under him as fast as I could get out from underneath him. And I knew that I would never be that sort of leader who could not define for my employees what it's going to take for a dream that I have to get promoted to the next position. And that's leadership. And at that moment, my mission, I was not going to be that leader who would be a lousy leader. I was going to be somebody who could give people feedback, tell them what they needed to get to the next level, and really I wanted to be somebody who people wanted to work for. And I don't want to be the person like Bob where I can't get out working for this guy fast enough. And so that really was what has always been a passion of mine. Even when I was in corporate America, leadership has always been on a forefront, on the edge of what is most important to me.
I've always told people, leadership's hard. I mean, it is incredibly hard to do successfully. It's ever changing. It's, there are a lot of the hard decisions, oftentimes have to come to you, and you have to balance all of these variables at things, and you're going to make some people upset and other people happy. And, there's just a lot that goes into it. And one of the things that I appreciate, I referenced the book, but Clash of the Generations, Managing the New Workplace Reality. I mean, you talk about leadership then across generations, and almost every organization and business and certainly industry is perpetually living this. I mean, it's not just a today thing, but I mean, it's a forever thing.
Exactly. That's why I love my book, because it is a forever thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think it's probably somewhat important to unpack. I mean, because they have all these labels, and we've all heard them about baby boomers and Gen X and millennials and Gen Z. Let's start unpacking some of these things. So when I took notes here, I have Gen X between 45 and 60.
Yep.
I have millennials between 29 and 44. And this is for people listening to kind of calibrate. They can kind of assign people they know into these categories. Right. And then the Gen Z, much younger, but up to 28. So I mean, we're talking late teens in their 20s.
Yep.
And that. So where do we start with this?
What I would always say is these are just general labels.
Yeah.
I can tell you that as a leader, if you want to find out truly what you're interested in, I need to ask you. And I need to so it's what I recommend. Look, I think it's important to understand what I may be dealing with by somebody coming in. But if I truly want the answer, I need to ask them, what are your future goals? Where do you want to be in a year from now, or 3 years from now, or 5 years from now? How do you prefer to be communicated with? What does respect mean for you? So I have general ideas, and the book kind of helps with that. But ultimately, if I truly want to know what makes Eric tick, I need to ask you, because I don't know what your experience is. And so I think that as leaders, we have to recognize that everybody is an individual. And I think that's what makes leadership harder than it was. Because again, it was employees adapting to it was expected employees adapted to the leader. That's not the case now.
So why is that shifted in your opinion?
I think it's how people have been raised. Think about with, people just have more disposable income. You have millennials were raised by boomers, millennials were raised by Gen X parents, boomer grandparents, and Gen X just had more money than typically their boomer parents. And you're seeing money helps with that, in the fact that kids don't work. kids don't have that exposure to work or have that exposure to having to get involved with a boss. And so they feel that they have more choices. When have you heard parents ask their kids, "Oh, what do you want to do for dinner tonight?" Or making something different for the kids versus what you make for the parents. "Oh, you don't like peas? Okay, you don't have to eat those. Here, let me make you something else. I'll make you pasta." So we've just given them more choices, and we're seeing the same thing with Gen Z. Kids are like, my parents at no point asked for my opinion on anything. And now parents, that's what they do. "What do you want for dinner?" So no one would ever ask me that. So there's this expectation that they're going to be involved in decisions. And so it's just how we've raised kids. Oh, you don't like volleyball? No worries. You can quit. You can quit mid-season. And we'll see if I can get you into the lacrosse team midway through. If not, but you try it next time. If you don't like it after two games, you just quit. I had to stick through softball. I hated it. It was nothing like I expected. And my parents said, "You don't quit. You don't quit in the middle of it." So, it's just in how our parents have raised us. And so it sets up our expectations on our mentors, on our coaches, on our, on the folks who are managers. I mean, look at helicopter parent. You've heard that term, helicopter parents. And that helicopter, that expectation of somebody hovering over here helping me figure out my life is exactly what I bring in. Is exactly what I bring into the office, and so they expect that out of their leader.
Yeah. So, boy, there's a lot to
right. I know.
From here.
I know. I'm sorry. I went in a lot. I gave a lot of information there, Eric.
Well, I like it because, actually, the approach that I appreciated from your book and your conversation today was not judgmental. I would imagine, because I probably had tinges of it as you were talking, like, I can't believe that. I just, that is not right. That is, and I'm sure there are people, you listed off these variety of things like, yeah, I can't believe parents are doing that today. But your approach to leadership, I found, was you can like it or not like it, but that's the reality. And it's going to be different, in the next generation as it was in the previous generation. So it's this ever-evolving thing. And so in many ways, it's understanding the reality and then how to adapt your leadership to that reality to get the most out of the people that you're working with.
100%. And I'll tell you what I would challenge each leader to look at. You're clearly good at what you do. That's why you're in leadership, right? Your job is to solve problems. This is nothing more than another problem to solve of how to come in and motivate someone who only wants to work 40 hours a week, who doesn't want to work 60 or 80 hours a week because they want work-life balance. It is what it is. So what I want 40 solid hours coming out of there. And is that a bad thing that they want to only work 40 hours a week? Like my father worked 100 hours a week. And so it's just, you're clearly good if you're in leadership to begin with. This is just another problem to be solved. And think of it as elevating your skills, and just like you would solve any other problem, it's, hey folks, what's everybody's ideas on how to solve this problem? Now it's one-on-one. All right, what do you want? What do you want? What's going to motivate you? What motivates you? What excites you? I'm going to try to give you as much of that as I can, but understand that every job's got some crappy stuff that they got to deal with. And so if I can get you to 75% loving your job, how would that be? Would that excite you? And so this way we've got the filler stuff that you don't like. All I did was just solve a problem. And so just view it in that regard, and that's what you're already good at. So just focus on what you're already good at, problem solving, and use the techniques you've done, and you're just going to have to adapt. And it won't be as hard as you think. It's all about mindset.
You actually took the word out of my mouth. I'm glad you said it, because that's what it feels like this is. If there are any frustrations, if you are a leader and you're experiencing these frustrations, what you're suggesting, or what I'm hearing you suggest, is you probably got to throttle it down a little bit, and you probably need to take a look in the mirror and adjust.
Yeah.
And that probably is going to feel hard.
It is hard.
Because as a leader, you want other people to adjust. Like, you've done it.
I'm the leader.
You've
exactly.
built this company, or you're leading this company. Like, you know the direction that you want to go, but all these variables are maybe challenging that. And you're saying that's okay.
Right. It's just going to make you a better leader. It's just going to make you a better leader. I always say, assume positive intent. Look, if you have an employee who's bad, they're bad, get rid of them. But otherwise, I haven't really met too many employees who come in and just want to do a bad job, who want to do a terrible job. They don't. They want to do a good job, go home, feel good about themselves, have their boss say, that was great, thank you for everything you're doing. Go have a good evening. And so if I can assume positive intent, what it is just unlocking the key to what excites them and what motivates them. And that's what makes it, that to me is just what makes it interesting. And I understand the frustrations. Please don't think I'm not a saint here. I'm not standing here saying I don't ever get frustrated, because it is frustrating to try to figure out which key fits this. All right, who's this? What's this person need? But I like your term of throttling it back, because that's not helping. You, as we all know, if you're walking into a conversation emotionally charged, your rational side of your brain is not in gear. So dial it back and figure out what's bugging you, figure out what's bugging me as the leader, get over it, and then walk into this conversation solving a problem, not walking in there angry because somebody's not responding the way, Susie's not responding the way that Bob does. Yeah. And so focus on, I always say focus on the problem, because what my hope is that it's pulling people out of like this emotional turmoil. And because anything emotional is just not good being in there.
Yeah. Well, I like the way that, you talked about figuring out the key for your employees and asking, on the surface are very simple questions like, how do you like to be communicated? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Based on your experience just through workshops and speaking, are you finding that companies are doing this, leaders are doing this, or are they like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing it? Because it feels very simple. Like, you present it as like these very sort of high level, easy questions, but that are probably also not being done.
Well, this will sound terrible. Thank goodness it's not being done, because that I have a job because of it. Oh, was that terrible? That was terrible. I think I can tell you companies are still struggling with it, because this is still the number one topic. This is the number one topic that I speak on, is just how to manage all of this, we call it a gumbo. I live in New Orleans. How do we manage all this gumbo that's all these different things coming in, all these different personalities coming in, and wants and desires and where they want to go and all of this. I always say, if you want one question to remember, if you want one question as a leader to elevate your leadership and how to figure this out, what I would say is ask your employees, what do I need to do to be a better leader for you? I'm given no guarantees that I'm going to do it, but at least I need to know what you need from me so that I'll be a better leader for you. And then try to match it. Where you can, do it. Where you can't, have a conversation with somebody and tell them, I can't do this because of this. I want more flexibility. That's not the role. Let's talk about that. But what it's doing is it's forcing that conversation, forcing me to give feedback, forcing me to adjust. And they're just telling me what they need. So they've just given me the puzzle pieces. They've just given me the puzzle pieces to unlock motivation within them. So even if you make strides towards that, it's better. You're moving in the right direction.
One of the really things, I took some notes today while you're talking, you outlined a bit why people leave, why they join an organization, and why they stay within an organization. And number one on the majority of those topics had nothing to do with money.
Yeah, money's actually number 6 on the list.
Okay.
Overall, so money's 6 on the list, which is exciting to me because there are other things that you may potentially do. Because I understand budgets are budgets.
Yep.
You know, I'd love to give everybody a raise, but that may not be the budget. So it is the other challenging piece on that list is workplace flexibility. That may or may not. Like, you have to teach people that their role, if you're the receptionist, you can't answer phones from your home. Yeah. If you are work on the shop floor, you can't lathe from home. So, but where I can give flexibility, I do give flexibility. It's also about career development. It's learning opportunities. It is creating an environment, a safe environment where people like to go. So creating a team environment. Mentoring. These are all things, having interesting work for people to work on. A lot of studies out there that show that even if people have one thing on their list that they're excited about, even if the rest of the stuff is all
busy.
Right. Yeah, I almost was going to say garbage work or busy work. I like your terminology better, Eric. If the rest of it is busy work, because they have something that they're excited about, they'll actually do better on everything. And so those are things we can all do and think about, and it's not going to cost you any more money. Yeah. And it's not going to mean that I need people to stay at home.
Why do we forget about those things? So I have a background in education and in teaching. You know, they talk about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, and it's always intrinsic is more valuable. And, you know, this is when you're talking about like kids, but that resonates through adulthood and beyond as well. But yet I feel like maybe we forget about that a little bit.
100%. And I would say nowadays it's not the leader's fault. I remember my first leadership position. By the way, I did get that position eventually, working for a different boss. I got that promotion that I wanted to go after. 80% of my time was just leading people. Nowadays, what I find is that leaders have their own work as well. So we're busier. Like, we don't really have the time to focus just on leading because I got my own stuff I got to get done, and all my employees have stuff to do. So it's not you. If you feel like, wow, why don't I have more time to spend with my employees and be a better leader for them? It's not you. It's the world now. Because there's just too much work to be done. I don't have any employees who aren't drowning in that. And I say, so once you come to terms with the fact that you will never be caught up, you will never reach a point where you are caught up, it's about priorities. And part of the priorities is that you have to meet with your people. You've got to make time for them. You've got to grow. You've got to develop them. And if you just accept that and know that you're always going to be behind, I think that it sort of eases that burden of guilt that what's wrong with me. And so it's again, back to that intrinsic, that's all intrinsic in a leader. And so it's not you. The world is busier. And so those intrinsic, so that's why we struggle back to your original question. That's why we struggle doing it all and focusing on intrinsic, because I'm just overwhelmed. And so it really, really is about coming to terms with the fact that you will not be caught up, and it's a matter of really understanding clear priorities. And if you are a leader, being that leader who develops their people, who meets with them regularly to help build them up, to make sure that their skills are growing and developing. Once you understand that's your number one priority, you're going to make that a priority. And then, that's your fate. Yeah. That's your fate. I hate to say it. When you signed up for being a leader, that's your fate.
This episode of the Area Podcast is sponsored by...
You have a story to tell. That story has a job to do. To be seen. To be heard. To sell. To find inspiration and insight. To use persuasion to change behavior. To turn strategy into tactics, tactics into action. To sell. Nobody does that better than Flynn Wright.
It all started with the mulch colorant that made our name. And now, Color Biotics manufactures millions of pounds of product month after month, bringing brilliance and resilience all around the world. And as we look ahead, all we see is growth. A growing customer base and growing sales mean a growing team. From the lab to the field, backyards to ball fields, and beyond. We need vivid imagination, intense passion, and brilliant ideas. If that sounds like you, we have one question. Are you ready to get to work? colorbiotics.com/careers.
Just south of Iowa State University, in the heart of the Midwest, sits the Iowa State University Research Park. 550 acres of opportunity and innovation. With over 1 million square feet of developed space, it's home to more than 145 tenant companies, from startups to global leaders. Discover innovation hubs, collaborative spaces, and a community that's shaping the future. Whether you're scaling up or starting fresh, ISU Research Park has room to grow. Visit isupark.org to learn more.
So let's go back to what we were just talking about, because I find that high performers are successful because they perform at a high level in the thing that they love. And then because of that high performance, they're put into leadership roles. And leadership is very different than what they were probably performing very high in. And so, you had talked about one of the things, it's you need to, those people that are now maybe new or even experienced, but maybe just really didn't click in that leadership area. You talked about it has to be a priority to connect with people. Are there other traits that you see in helping make that transition from maybe being a high performer in isolation to leading?
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you, number one, set clear expectations. I can't give feedback. I can't tell somebody that they're doing the job well or not. I can't do anything unless I come back and set very clear expectations. And so it is, start with that. Learn how to be crystal clear. Also understand you don't get to decide clarity. Your listener does. So when I give a project to someone, okay, first off, if it's somebody younger, first thing I say is, here's the project I'm going to give you. I don't launch into it. If they're younger than me, I ask them, what do you know about this? Younger or older, it doesn't really matter. What do you know about this project? How much do you know? Tell me. And then what I'll do is I'll either fill in the blanks. Okay, you know nothing? Excellent. Let me just dump everything that I know about it. So I'm setting very crystal clear expectations. I'm delegating well. So I'm getting out of the way. I'm saying, here's what I need. Here's the quality that I need it done to, and here's when I need it by. And oh, by the way, here's what I would like updates on it. Can't get to the day before. So crystal clear in expectations, doing an excellent job of delegation. I'm going to check in. I'm going to follow up. Following up is a skill set. So by the way, I track what projects that I assign to folks so that I know what I need to follow up. I meet with my people and say, how's this project progressing? What problems are you running into? So what I'm doing is I'm getting into coaching. I'm coaching them. What challenges are you experiencing? Oh, okay, gosh, that does sound like a problem. What are your suggestions? I'm not solving the problem for them. I'm coaching them to solve. So as we talk about skills, great at setting expectations, figure out how to coach people without telling them what to do. Then I'm going to be able to give great feedback on those expectations, including holding people accountable. I have to be comfortable saying to somebody, hey, Bob, you know what? You're supposed to get 30,000 of those pieces out. You only got 20,000. What's the scoop? What was the challenge? What'd you run into? Oh, okay. All right. What would you do? All right. So that means next week we got to get 40,000 out. How are we going to make that happen? How do you think to overcome this? So what you're seeing me is I'm giving them feedback, telling them, holding them accountable. I'm going to say, all right, how are you going to make this happen? How are you going to make sure we don't run into those problems? All right, okay, so if you do that, you feel uncomfortable, you can get 40,000 out. Perfect. All right, now, when are you going to tell me if we run into a problem? When are you going to get me involved? Because telling me on Friday that we missed the mark that's not giving me time to help. So let's talk about how you're going to keep me posted. So right there, what I've just talked about is setting expectations, coaching, giving feedback, and holding people accountable. Those are skills that you need to do, that you need to know how to do in order to be a good leader. Because your job now, exactly to your point, Eric, you were an individual contributor. Now your job is not really to contribute. Now your job is to motivate other people to do this. And so that we need to work on a different set of skills.
And all of these things that you just laid out, I mean, this is going to pay off in the long run. The current project may feel like, and maybe the reality is not this, but it feels like maybe it's moving in slow motion.
Molasses. Yes. Because if you just did it yourself, you could do it, you'd knock it out, and now it's taking days. Yes, you're absolutely right, Eric.
No, I mean, that is correct as well. It's like, and you're probably fighting this urge to say, well, why don't you just do A, B, C, and D? Because it's intuitive to me, because I was a high achiever, even though I probably learned that from somebody else, back in the day. But
yeah. And the challenge with that, and you just got to fight that urge to do that, because the challenge is, if you solve the problem, if you tell them how to do it, they're not learning, they're memorizing. So if they have a problem, they have to come to you to solve it, because I didn't figure out the steps to begin with. That's the challenge, which means you still hold the accountability for that project being done. And that's not what you want.
Right.
You want them to understand this is your project. Figure out how I'm here to support you, but this is your project. Talk to me. So when somebody comes, I ran into a problem. Okay. Your first instinct may be, well, here's what you can do to get past it. That's the exact wrong thing to do. I always think in terms of questions. Well, what do you think we should do? Well, I'm not sure. I've got these two ideas. Okay, walk me through the pros and cons of both. What do you think is going to be better 6 months from now? All right, so which one do you think is it? Now, here's how I walk them through two options. If they come and they say, well, I don't know how to go, I don't know where to go. All right, well, what would be your best guess? Everybody always has a guess. Everybody always has a guess. So push them to make a decision, because if you're pushing them to make a decision, what you're doing is keeping accountability with them and not on you. Because the moment I start solving problems, now look, if something's down to the wire and we have a problem, I may come in and say, look, let's do it this way, and I'll walk you through why afterwards. But I try that as an absolute last resort, and the fact that a deadline's immovable. Outside of that, I have to give them more time. It has to go through molasses for them to learn, just like I did from somebody else who gave me, I always compare it, when you were little, like it took you weeks, it took you months to figure out how to use a spoon, then I had a fork and a knife. And so it's the same principle here, that yes, it's going to take them longer, just like it did when you started, but that's how they learn. You doing it and just telling them what to do, that's not learning.
So do some of these things, do they kind of transcend generations? And just as, we talked about the differences between Gen X, Millennials, Gen Zs, and based on how they grew up, is decision-making and one of those things that every person in their early 20s, it's not native to them? Or is it like a current generational thing?
Well, that's why, to be honest, it's best to talk with each individual. Because I would never assume, and see, I think that's the challenge, is we assume people who are young coming in know nothing. And so what we do is when we hand them over projects, we just start preaching to them or start, expounding all of our knowledge instead of saying, hey, here's the task. What do you know about this? And then I'll fill in the blanks. And so I would not assume that decision making is not new to them because
Okay.
you know
You don't know.
Yeah, you don't know,
Right.
and the key is have moments along the way where as an example, when I delegate a project, I know exactly how far I can let them go until they have to run it by me. So it's sort of what's the threshold of risk to the company,
Yeah.
and the higher that threshold is, now I have to be involved. But if it's decisions along the way, let them learn and try to figure it out, because I don't want to be involved in every decision.
Yeah.
And guess what? That tells you, all right, how'd that decision work out? What'd you decide? I know you were at a crossroads. What'd you decide? Well, it bombed. Okay, what'd you learn? What are you going to do differently? Now they've just learned. If I just tell them that, they haven't learned that, oh, by the way, that idea may not be the best way, but if you tried it and it failed. So that's why we have to, when you delegate, figure out what's the threshold of risk that I can let somebody get to, and then let them scoot right up to that. Now you got to get me involved. And then I can talk with them about what challenges have you had? What did you do about it? How'd you get around that? Oh, God, nice job.
Yeah.
How would you apply that to another project? See, now I've figured out how their decision-making's going.
And I can see without asking and sort of setting the barometer of what they know. Let's say they know a ton and you don't ask them the question, and maybe myself as a leader, I'm just saying, okay, I want you to do this and I want you to go this, and this. That might be holding them back as well, because they may have a knowledge base that could make the project that they're working on way better than the way I would ever do it.
Exactly. And that's the trap we get into.
Yeah.
As leaders, sometimes we think that we have to know everything. I don't have to know everything. I have to help my people solve problems. So I'm going to help and go, all right, who's got more knowledge of that? Yeah, go talk to Bob. Go talk to Susie. Go talk to somebody. Yeah, they may be able to help you get around this project. That's my job as a leader, is not to know everything. My job is to unleash the innovation, creativity, and abilities in everybody who works for me. Think about it from a CEO standpoint. They're not doing any of the work.
No, correct.
They've got everybody working for them doing the work. You're the CEO of your role. You're the CEO of what you're doing. And so think of it in those terms of how I unleash that creativity, how I unleash that innovation, that problem solving in this person, so that they can make bigger decisions next time.
Provide some guidance on providing feedback. I feel like we've done some of that already, but I feel like the more you do it, the easier it is. I feel like some really good talking points that I really heard from you is, you can't make it emotional, but providing feedback, whether you're a seasoned leader or new and aspiring, there's a lot of ways to misstep that.
Oh my God, tons. And I would say that of all the things on a leader's plate, on a people leader's plate, that's probably the most difficult.
Yeah.
'Cause you know what it is? We're afraid the other person's going to get emotional on us. They're going to cry. They're going to argue. They're going to do this, that, and the other. And they may, but we still got to wade in anyway. We got to sort of put on our leader pants and wade into that. And so I think that it always starts from expectations. And I hate to keep going back to that, but it's hard to give feedback that somebody's not meeting expectations if you haven't defined them to begin with. So do a really good job of that. And then it is, hey, this report was due into the client on Friday. Today's Monday. You missed the deadline. What's the scoop? I have a tendency to approach it more from the fact of, how do we get it in? How do we get this in right now? Because it was due Friday, today's Monday. What happened? What are we going to do differently next time to make sure that these reports are going to be on time? Because I want to sort of almost like feedback forward.
Yeah.
sort of what are you going to do differently to meet this expectation? So I'll give you a classic example. One of my new employees at my company, so I have my employees, they have to submit a static status report. They go into a Google Doc and just update. And what they give me is the top 3 or 4 things that I care about. It's not a soliloquy. It's a bullet points of 3, 4 things they got done this week. Any challenges that they had, because I want to talk about those, and then what they're going to work on next week. And I had an employee who kept missing it. And I would say, all right, hey, you got to get this in. Like our meeting's at 2:00. It's 9:00. It's not in. Yeah. I'm going to do it right now. What's the scoop? What happened? What's the challenge? What stopped you? Well, and what he came back and said was, Val, you gave me this new project on Thursday, and I just ran out of time to do the status report. Okay. All right. So, Bob, the challenge here is that 2 things. Number one, if I give you something, understand that nothing takes higher priority than you getting in that status report, unless I say. So clearly they don't understand the priorities. Yeah. That's on me.
Sure.
That I didn't come back and say, oh, by the way, you got to do this, but you also have to get your status report in. So nothing takes the place of that. If you get to a point where it's either one or the other, that's your cue to come talk to me if I've told you that both are due on Friday. So that's my expectation to you, is that you're going to bring me in the loop. And please understand that in order to get promoted, you're going to have to be able to handle multiple deadlines all at the same time. So let's think about what could you do, thinking about coming up, because you know what? Chances are I'm going to give you another project on Thursday or Friday. In fact, you know what? I may give you 2 projects on Thursday and Friday. So what could you do now? What ideas are there to make sure that everything gets in? The status report is done. Is there any prep work you could do? Yeah. So I'm helping them to solve the issue. And what he came back with is, well, I could actually, I really could kind of write it on Thursday with anything that I've done up till then. And then if anything new drops in, I can just add a bullet point in there for that. And I said, that sounds like a great idea. Why don't you try that? So this is, again, but it's having that conversation. It's having that brave conversation of just saying, you didn't get this in. What's the scoop? What got in your way? What do we need to do about it?
Well, I like how it's and even your modeling here, it's clear, it's to the point, it's short.
Yeah.
It's unemotional.
Well, I don't want my employees, it's not helpful to me if I come back and beat my employee up. What's wrong with you? Yeah. How can't you get these deadlines? I don't want them feeling bad about themselves. Because let me tell you right now, like if you're Gen Z or millennial, you're going and updating your LinkedIn profile and you're out of there as soon as you can. Yeah. And so I don't want that. And that's not my goal. What I want is the friggin' status report due, and they have a problem, and I'm going to help them with that. Yeah. So I like the idea again, and I know I kind of repeat myself, but it helps keep the emotion out of it for me by just focusing on solving problems. And I also hope that I am modeling behavior for them as well, for them to be leaders and not approach things emotionally. Oh, I didn't get it in. It's all right, get it in. What are you going to do differently?
One of the things that you had talked about upping your leadership is being seen. But I also hear you're saying in somewhat of a similar way, modeling the behavior that you want to see as well.
Well, I think we lead the way. Leaders, I mean, that's in the title, right? Leaders lead the way. And so if I'm unavailable, if people send me emails and it takes me days to get back to them, then what's the motivation for them to get back to me? Yeah, I can come back and go, well, I'm the boss. Yeah, but I'm not really modeling the behavior. It's sort of like, what's that old saying? Do as I say, not as I do. And I believe in that really guides leadership, that really defines leadership. And so I'm not asking anything from you that I myself am not modeling. And so I very much feel like I also just feel like, look, we have to be seen by our employees. Look, even before, like I have at Oxygen Media, I had multiple offices. I had an office in Dallas, an office in LA, one in the Midwest, and I wasn't flying out there every week, but I can tell you that I had lunch. I rotated lunch every Friday with a different office, so that my employees saw me there, and it was our opportunity, just a little water cooler time.
Yeah.
And it's their lunch. I'm bringing a little snack. I would eat a late, like a late breakfast, so that we're all eating. And it just simulates being seen and, be seen. And it makes them know that I care about them. It's our opportunity to shoot the bull and get to know one another, that they still feel like they're part of the mothership, even though it's in New York City.
Well, I would find for a lot of leaders, it is easy to say, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and you don't do it. Actually, an episode that we did earlier this year was with the new president and CEO of Mary Greeley Medical Center, so the hospital in town. And she was telling me a story. She was there today listening to you, but you saying this reminded me of the conversation we had right here, where she gets in her scrubs and goes and meets with like the shift leaders and is part of like that meeting, and she even admitted, there are times where it's just like, oh, like why is she here? Why? Because she wanted to learn.
Yeah.
She wanted to see how processes can be improved. And the only way that you can do that is by getting out of your office.
Yeah, absolutely. But also think about it, not only seeing how processes can be being done better, but you're in it with them.
Yeah, right.
As the leader, what you do on the front lines of our services that we provide to our customers, our patients coming in, that matters to me. I'm not sitting in some ivory office, ivory tower, edicting things when I haven't been out there and talked to the people.
Right.
And it also just makes you more approachable. Don't you want your employees, if there's truly something bad going on, I want people to be able to approach me. And that can be intimidating if you're that big leader. You're like, oh my God, don't look. No. It's like, oh, hey, Mary. Hey, good to see you again. I used to at Oxygen. So HR typically has reported to me in the roles that I've been in. What do you do when you see HR coming? You hide, because you're thinking, oh my God, why is HR here? What are they doing? Are they firing somebody? What's going on? I had my people, all of my people, we would go sit in each of these departments, and we would sit there for a week just to be available if people had questions. So that I would always bring candy. Because so they knew it was their week, and I would attend meetings with them just to get to know their business, and I would offer suggestions on how I could potentially, from my role, help them in get their job accomplished. And I did that so that people went, oh, Val, is it our week already? Woo! What, you bringing donuts tomorrow? Yeah, I am. And that's what this CEO gets. Instead of people hiding, they're excited for her to be there to show them what they do because of pride.
Yeah.
And it helps to get them motivated because she's one of them.
Correct.
She's not somebody up in some tower that nobody ever sees. She's one of us.
And it's incredible. And, and it's, as a leader, you could take that time and you could probably be clacking away and getting a dozen emails sent during that time, but maybe those emails just get sent at night.
You will never be caught up. I'll state
you.
that again.
You already talked about that, and you got to be okay with it.
Exactly. You will never, even if she sat and did those emails, guess what?
She's still come back.
She's still not caught up. There's
Yeah.
still more to do.
Yeah.
You will never be caught up. What are the priorities? Spending face time out with your employees, showing them that you care, getting to know them, understanding their struggles, seeing what they're dealing with. That is what will come back and make them more committed.
Yeah. So what trends are you seeing right now? I mean, you've written the book, but as you know, it's ever evolving and ever changing. Like, what's sort of top of mind right now?
I mean, I hate to say this, but it's AI.
Oh, okay.
Like it's just, I mean,
a
AI
whole
is
another
just,
episode.
yeah. I mean, AI is just the thing that I would say, and I know, it's one of the things I asked in the sessions, the breakfast and lunch sessions today. I'm like, who's sick of hearing about AI? I'm sick of hearing about AI. However, if you're struggling finding people, or you're trying to make folks more efficient, that's why you look at AI. And it is figuring out not how to use AI as a shiny penny, how to help people get all the emails caught up, how to help people do their job faster so that I can get out of the rote stuff, the stuff that's uninteresting and just the things that are just rote, and get them into patient care. Like, I don't want if I'm in a hospital, I don't want people doing reports. Are you kidding? Taking reports and putting reports in. I understand it's required. Like, and you need it. You got to have it. Like, it's life-saving. Yeah. It's life-saving. But what I'd rather have them do is edit versus doing all this stuff manually or whatever it is that they do manually, because I'd rather them be there with the patient, really listening to them and talking with them and helping them and trying to solve their problem. And so, to me, I think the biggest trend that I am seeing right now is how to make AI fit for good. Not to replace people, although we're certainly hearing those stories, right? But
Are you a believer of that, though?
I think if you code or things like that, I think technology, I bet you AI could replace people in technology. Okay. Yeah, I think
won't there be other roles? Do you think?
I think so. I mean, to me, any technology company, if you're not creating new technology, you're falling behind. But again, that's not a world that I 100% understand. But outside of that, and what I would say is I just don't know of any jobs in like normal corporate America that's 100% going to take over your job. Like, I look at, processing, like we used to have somebody at Oxygen who did nothing but process expense reports, because there's so many people traveling. They're so complicated, all this. Yes, that went away. You know what? We had to do something else. Yeah. So there's always something else in there. And what I would say is I want to be the person who's on that leading edge of being able to get more done, because to me, it makes you more valuable. So I would certainly say that is, and I, look, there's lots of other things that we could talk about, but I think that certainly from an employee standpoint and from a leadership standpoint, figuring out how AI can help people do their jobs better, faster, more efficiently, how we can use AI as a strategic partner. Those are things that we need to look at and embrace and just leap into.
All right, as we close, I always ask if you have a professional win from the last week or two, and you can't pick today. I know coming to Ames was a professional win, but you got to pick something else.
Oh gosh, well, I just got a big keynote. First time I'm speaking for this client. It's in March, and so I'm pretty doggone excited because we've been talking about this for a long time, and I was shocked that they still hadn't picked somebody. And by gosh, maybe they picked somebody else and they bailed. But I'm a go for March. It's going to be Connecticut. I hope it's warm. Although who knows? I'm in Iowa in December. So I think what's exciting for me is it's nice because I'm going to be able to talk about leadership and help more people go out there and be leaders. And I feel like we need more great leaders in this world.
Yeah. Well, keep talking about it, and I 100% agree. And really, thank you for coming to Iowa, coming to Ames. I know that we are going to continue to hear about today from our stakeholders for months and months. I mean, it was really, really great. And thanks for coming on here.
Absolutely. I'm delighted. Really delighted.
So Valerie Grubb, author, keynote speaker, expert in leadership. This is probably an episode that a person probably should or certainly could listen to more than once. We unpacked a lot in this one. Again, thank you for being on this episode of the Area Podcast. Of course, if you like this episode, we would love for you to share it. This is the Area Podcast from the Ames Regional Economic Alliance. Personal stories, professional journeys.